All right. Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's episode. I'm Yawei, your host. And for those of you who don't know, I used to complete in basketball in Adult Legends. So today's topic really hits home for me because we are kind of talking about something that's often overlooked in the world of sports, mental training. Specifically, how can sports psychologists help athletes? I'm really excited to have an expert joining me today. With me is Yiwen, a sports psychologist. Thank you so much for being here, Yiwen.
Yes, thank you for having me, Yawei. And my name is Yiwen, and I'm an applied support psychologist with more than 10 years of experience in the field. And by the word applied, I mean I want to say that I had practical experience working with athletes and coaches across different levels. So today I'm super excited to dive into the topic with you and all the audience.
Awesome. Thank you so much again for being here. As my experience as athletes, we are kind of used to focus on the psychological training. For example, skills, conditioning, all the stuff that gets you in peak physiological shape. But we don't always talk about the mental side of things, which I think can be also just as important as the physiological performance, right?
Yeah, for sure. Like a lot of athletes, as they think as long as they are physically prepared and then they will perform well. But the truth is that mental strength can be the distinct things like difference between winning and losing. And just as the public would understand like what we sports psychologists do, like we focus on the mental and emotional side of the athlete performance. And since we specialize on are like that, we help athletes manage their anxiety and stress, help develop their focus, confidence, and mental toughness before the competition, and also deal with after competition conditions like injury recovery and transition to their future life after the athlete's career. And so basically, while the coaches are responsible for physical training, strategy, and skill development, we psychologists focus on the psychological aspect of that influence the athlete's performance.
Yes, true. Thank you so much for the introduction of the functionalities and the duties of sports psychologist. But in my own experience, our team didn't have a professional sports psychologist when I was there. Um, it's actually our coach who stepped up and took the role of the sports psychologist, kind of. He really did it all when it come to our mental well-being, motivating
Mhm.
us, helping us to build strong team cohesion, and also worked through those mental blocks we all face, such as self-doubt or the feel of failure. What stood out the most was how he set the right mindset for us, which I think is really important before arrogant. He gave us these practical strategies to kind of handle pressure, especially in those critical moments when the were high. It wasn't just about performing on the field. He made sure we were mentally prepared off the field too. And honestly, I think that's a really big part of why we succeed as a team, as we got a really good coach. And he just mentally and physiologically supported our growth, both in competition and in our life. But what you mentioned also makes sense to me and kind of opened the world for me. And I think that's where some confusion comes in. People often think, well, as the coaches did a lot of stuff for the athlete, isn't that what coaches could do with all the stuff with athlete? But there actually a difference, right? Sports
Yeah.
psychologists bring something unique to the table, and they are actually different with the traditional coaches that we encountered.
Yes, of course. I can already see like it's a great thing to have such a successful coach who also cared about the mental side of your athletes and you also appreciate like the how psychologists could play significant roles even if you didn't have a psychologist role in your team. And from what we talked about already, I can already see like coaches and psychologists they take roles in overlapping areas like setting the goals, developing the confidence and mental toughness for the athletes,
True.
and also managing their stress and burnout both in competition and the injury recovery, as well as improving the team dynamics as a holistic like approach. What you have said and also I have mentioned. Then I want to bring an real life example, like the well-known successful basketball team, San Antonio Spurs in the NBA League. They had a history of prioritizing the mental health and a strong emphasis of the team culture. And this was achieved by both the performance psychologists like Dr. David Cook and Dr. Hilary Cawthon with a strong psychology background and also with the coach team they had. I, as a sports psychologist, also appreciated a lot for the head coach Popovich's efforts and smartness in enhancing the mental health of his players. Like I remember that how he rebuilt the Spurs players' confidence and competence after the devastating loss in the 2013 NBA Finals by emphasizing that the players' worth and identity like go beyond just basketball. And during the team dinners he usually had with his players, he reassured that they had given their best, and while also saying that basketball was not the only thing that defined their lives. By doing this, like reassuring their identity and what they have accomplished. He fostered a strong sense of relatedness and emotional support within the team. So helping his players recover like mentally and enhance mental resilience, which all contributed to their next year's winning of the championship. So I totally agree that what you said that coaches can indeed play significant roles in managing the players' mental health as well as the sports psychologists.
Yes, I really like your example. It's exactly what I'm talking about. Then comes a common question, especially when the budgets for a team are tight. For example, for those small teams do not have a lot of founders, why can't a coach handle the mental side of things entirely?
Yeah, that's a pretty great and common question. Even if for the elite teams in the competitive level, they also have like budget and funding limitations, and you are kind of a representative of the audience, like what questions they would also come up with to ask like professionals like us. And coaches are fantastic at physical training and pushing athletes to perform, right? But while they can offer some levels of the mental support, a research titled Determining the Role of Support Coaches in Promoting the Athlete's Mental Health, a narrative review and Delphi approach reported that coaches, while supportive for the mental health as well, often lack the expertise in diagnosing and like treating the complex mental health conditions like the eating disorders and the depression. Coaches' support tend to be limited to the improving the general mental awareness of the athletes and also coping with problems based on their own experiences.
Yes, true. You're right. I totally agree with you. Indeed, as coaches are incredible at training athletes physically and can offer some mental support. But you said
True.
they're not trained to address deeper psychological needs. That's such an important distinction between um, be because sometimes the mental side of things can get really severe. It's not just about staying focused or dealing with nervous before a big game. This
Mhm.
recalled me with an example of Michelle Phelps, who is the
Famous.
most dedicated Olympian ever, but he openly shared his struggles with depression and even contemplated suicide after the 2012 Olympics. His coach couldn't have dealt with that alone, and it's quite a dangerous situation for him at that time, right? It took a
Dark
sport
moments.
psychologist to help him navigate those dark moments and recover in a professional kind of way with a lot of professional strategies. So that's the thing. Although most of the coaches have deep connections with the athletes, when it comes to something as severe as suicidal thoughts, a coach simply doesn't have the tool to deal with that. Phelps needed someone with specialized mental health trainings to help him process those emotions and work out with him through this depression. It's not just about getting back to the pool or focusing on the next race. It's about protecting the athletes as a person, ensuring
Yeah.
they're kind of mentally and emotionally healthy. That's where the sports psychologist plays such a crucial role in this big picture.
Yeah, that's a like great example, famous person. And by bringing out like how psychology is so important in their athlete stock phases, I can see that we are now kind of on the same page. That we both recognize that like coaches and sports psychologists play some roles in athletes' mental health, and there are some overlaps, but definitely many unique things that they can achieve like only by themselves. So then, according to two findings in the early 21st century, the sports culture has a nature of supporting athletes' superior toughness. By that, I mean that where the athletes are assumed to compete for the ability to fight under the stress and pain, right? So it's just very common for many athletes not seeking for the emotional support to maintain their like perfect and unbeatable image of having no weakness at all. So few of them actually tend to speak out like Phil you mentioned and the famous basketball player Kevin Love did. Then like what mental health problems come up when the mental health problem come up and progress from your experience as an formal athlete, like, what whom do you think athletes would and should have the trust on and seek out the help for?
Yeah, that's a quite interesting question for me. Speaking from my own experience, I didn't really encounter severe mental health issues during my career as an athlete.
That's fortunately.
Most of the mental challenges I face, like the pressure before a game or the frustration of not performing at my best, are quite normal for an athlete, and also
Mm,
were things my coaches were he kind of be able to help me with. They gave me the guidance and support I needed to stay focused and confident. But I know that's not the case for everyone because I'm lucky, but some of my friends,
yeah, good for
they
you.
had much tougher experiences. Their relationship with their coaches were not good, and in some cases, the coaches' methods actually triggered more mental health issues for them.
Mm,
For example, I've seen coaches use public criticism as a form of motivation, calling out athletes in front of the whole team when they made a mistake. It's
mm,
supposed to be
common.
toughen them up, but actually, it's just in reality, it just breaks down their confidence. I've
Mm,
also seen coaches push athletes to the point of burnout, no rest days, expecting them to train through injuries, creating not only physical strength for them, but mental exhausting. In
yeah.
those cases, it's
Mm,
hard for athletes to feel like they can turn to their coaches for help. when something went wrong with their mental health issues, when their coaches are the ones adding to their stress, actually. So that's why I think it's so important for athletes to have access to a sports psychologist or a mental health professional, someone outside the coaching dynamic who can really help them navigate those challenges. When the coach isn't providing the right support of or a worst case scenario contributing to the problem, athletes need someone they can trust to focus on their mental well-being. Actually, I'm not quite familiar with the sport psychologist's perspective, and I'm really curious about that, as I did not work with any of them and did not get to know their exact strategies. As we're so pleased to have you here today, could you kind of
My pleasure.
help us to expand the sports psychologist role in details, such as why it is unique and how your strategies work?
Yes, definitely. It like at the first, it's our pleasure to have you as a host and also bring the experience of being a former athlete. And I totally appreciate your you bring a comprehensive perspective both on the athlete side, coach side, and also the psychologist side. And let me take on the role to uh, introduce more to you and also the audience. Yes, like coaches definitely win the athlete trust in most cases they seek their help, like as you in the ways you described. But however, the sports psychologists are trained and certified to handle sensitive psychology issues with ethics and discretion. And according to Mark and his colleagues' work on the understanding and improving athlete mental health, a social identity approach, sports psychologists do their unique things to help. Like as Abby, Johnny, and Emma found from their exploration of coaches and sports psychologists' experience of managing performance blocks that only participants who worked with the sports psychologists had experience with interventions such as solution-focused therapy, cognitive behavior therapy, and mental skills training, including things like self-talks, positive self-talks. So we also had the advantage in implementing tailored intervention through specific practice tools. For example, the 24-item Bruno Mood scale developed by Terry, Lane, and Foggy were used efficiently to monitor the athletes, like their mental status, particularly under the intense training load, which is common for the elite athletes at the competitive level, right? So
Yeah.
the subclinical level of mental health of athletes in terms of their anger, fatigue, tension, depression, vigor, and also the confusion were closely tracked by psychologists, not the coaches. The things coaches normally do are just like giving random self-talks, and the most highest level is the questionnaires, basically self-reported. So the thing the psychologists do are more structured with more evidence-based, like the routine. And also another point, also with psychologists, athletes could worry less about leaving a weak impression and losing maybe their playing position or playing time in a team, and being evaluated like was by coaches who take most responsibility and roles and rights in like structuring their performance planning. They may, like if they seem weak in mental status, some coaches will put them back in their team. That's what they don't want to see. And the athletes I worked with, most of them said that they tend to feel much safer and comfortable to share the mental struggles with the sports psychologist. Also, to stand in the coach's shoes a little bit, like as their primary responsibilities are in developing athletes' physical and tactical skills to achieve the optimized physical performance, right? So not only the expertise could be the concern thing, but also coaches themselves can also experience burnout and stress and anxiety when they sacrificing their times and efforts to take on the mental health side of the the athletes and take on like another professional's roles on the mental aspect of the athlete.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much for the informative introduction of all this and also those references that you referred to. That really
My
highlight
pleasure.
the unique roles both coaches and sports psychologists play in an athlete's life. Coaches are absolutely vital for pushing athletes' physical and mental health, keeping them motivated and kind of providing guidance during competition. But as we talked about today, when it comes to deeper mental health challenges, especially in severe cases scenario, like what Michelle Phelps went through with
Mhm.
depression and suicidal thoughts,
Yeah.
a sports psychologist become more than just important. They kind of step in, they become essential. The coach
Yeah.
might be able to give some kind of level of support, but only a sports psychologist has the specialized training to address those complicated and serious psychological struggles and help athletes work through them in a healthy way. It's kind of a process designed for, by the sports psychologist, right?
Mhm.
So in the end, it's not about one being more important than the other. I think, but recognizing that they are each bringing something critical to the table. And in cases where mental health is at risk, and has an increasingly trend of the public's attention, like suicidal thoughts, the role of the sports psychologists
Mhm.
simply can't be replaced. And also to add on this, it's about creating a balanced support system for athletes where both
Collaboration,
phy-
right? Mm.
yeah, where both physical and mental aspects are nurtured. Because true performance and well-being can go hand in hand. And thank you so much again, Yiwen, for joining us with today. We really did a really good job and a fruitful session for today.
And thank you so much for having me and also appreciating the psychologist's role in sports team on the mental health aspect of the athletes. Yeah,
All
thank you.
right.
And
Yeah,
mhm.
this is the end of the episode and see you guys next week.
See you guys.